Hello and welcome yet again to the 313 Connect podcast, where we are had some technical difficulties and you could hear me and you couldn't hear the other two. What's going on, guys?
What's up, Leggy?
Man.
We pushed through. The beauties of doing it live. Anything can happen.
That's how you do it.
Yeah, this is the fifth episode, and I don't even know what's going on, man. Things happen, whatever. We're gonna get through it. We were just talking about Knicks Pacers, and what are you guys' thoughts on it? I, of course, already heard it once, but I think everyone in the audience deserves to hear it.
Yeah, as everyone on Pistons Twitter might begrudgingly know me for as the original Jalen Brunson apologist of Pistons Twitter. When he was available in the free agency market, I thought signing him for like $25 million a year would have been an absolute steal. And I posted the receipts on my Twitter for anyone that's interested of an entire stream calling me an idiot for that take. So funny how that bites us in the you-know-what. And I'm not sure if you saw either, Leggy, but our friend Pistons Talk, who I believe we're going to be doing a pod with this weekend, he posted a reminder that the Pistons actually took on Alec Burks to help the Knicks clear salary cap space to go and get Jalen Brunson. So the beauty of these types of moves is if you go and help facilitate an aggressive move for a team in your conference, it can come back to bite you in the butt if you have to face them down the road. And I'd say that happened for the Pistons. But, as far as a Knicks Pacers series, honestly, I think it's only right because this postseason has felt like 90s NBA basketball. So why not throw it back to one of the best rivalries of the 90s with Knicks and Pacers in the conference finals? I think, honestly, it doesn't get much higher drama than that, especially coming off of the drama intrigue of last year's matchup between the Knicks and the Pacers in the second round. So this is going to be fun, boys. I'm excited.
Yeah. Brennan, what are your thoughts on this series so far? Does it feel like a doomsday to you no matter what happens?
No, not really. I can't lie to you. I wasn't too much talking about Brunson going to the Knicks when he was a free agent, but I was definitely in the camp that is not an overpay for Jalen Brunson. Like whenever Luka didn't play, he gave you all-star numbers.
Yeah.
And obviously that can be kind of fluky sometimes with some players, but he passed the eye test, and I knew Jalen Brunson was legit. So honestly, the whole series against the Pistons, of course I'm going for the Pistons because that's what we do around here. But I still respect Brunson's game, man. He's a killer. So I actually wouldn't mind seeing Jalen Brunson go to the finals. I'm actually at the point where I kind of wouldn't mind seeing a Minnesota versus New York finals because of all the
Yeah.
storylines we can get. Julius Randle getting traded for Cat. Does Cat look better in New York? Yada, yada, yada. Cat was a franchise guy in Minnesota. So I wouldn't mind seeing that finals, man. Like, I do want OKC to win it all, but um, they might even lose the game. They might even lose Game 7 to Denver.
Yeah.
So if we get Denver versus Minnesota, I definitely want to see Minnesota versus New York in the finals.
Yeah, it feels like
for the sake of my mentions, I don't want to see a Minnesota New York finals, but I mean, from a intrigue and storyline standpoint, how do you get much better than that, man? Like Cat going up against Ant, going up against the team that traded him like 7 or 8 months ago because they had to clear space and made the bet that they could win a championship without Cat, and now the thing that might stand in their way of winning a championship is Cat.
Yeah.
Come on. And Randall going back to the Garden in the finals?
Exactly.
Yeah. They hated that dude at the end. I mean,
yeah, they gave up on Julius Randle like probably before the playoffs even started. They kind of gave up on
bias
him.
treatment.
He's been one of the best players in this playoff so far, and that's a testament
100%.
to showing how even just a situation change can be so beneficial for all-star players.
And he's shown to be a player that, quite frankly, I didn't think he would ever be, at least not on a consistent basis. Like he got a 20-point triple-double the other night. He's not just doing it with his scoring. He's been a great playmaker for this team. He's been, solid defensively. He's playing the physical brand of basketball that, quite frankly, I think what you're seeing from a lot of Knicks fans are like, where the hell was this guy when he was in New York? And I think sometimes, sometimes you need that fire lit under your ass and that new destination to really not only open your eyes of like what needs to change and how you need to grow, but also like just to like realize that, maybe things aren't what you think they are.
Yeah, and it was an interesting situation for Randall because in New York, before Brunson, he was kind of the guy, and it was easy for him to take that role. Going to Minnesota, just switching up the role, knowing that Anthony Edwards is going to be the number one, and knowing you're going to have to be a part of a system that he's going to have to move the ball because Anthony Edwards is the guy. But Julius Randle is one of those players you kind of fit him in as that number two, and it's perfect. I mean, you have a Jaden McDaniels who can sometimes take that role, and Randle can then become the number three, but there's nights he can be the one. So it's just a really coherent unit for Minnesota, and that's going forward. I think that's the best team in the playoffs.
Yeah, I like how Julius Randle can kind of run the offense sometimes. Like in Minnesota, not in Minnesota, but in New York, playing with Brunson. Brunson is a lot more ball dominant than Anthony Edwards, and that's just his game. He's a great on ball player, but Brunson really likes to pat to get going. So I do think that changes scenery and kind of to change of role. Like when they put two on Ant, and now Julius Randle is in a 3-on-2 opportunity, he can kill those advantages. So I'm loving what I'm seeing with Julius Randle, and playmaking has been top tier. The defensive buy-in next to Rudy Gobert and the guys, and Jaden McDaniels has been top tier. That's the part that I didn't think I would ever see from Julius Randle. The defensive buy-in that we're seeing now. The playmaking and the scoring. I mean, we've seen that in the regular season before, but not only is he not a liability on defense, he is actually like a strong defender against certain matchups. So that finals will be everything storyline wise. I know the Pistons, because of the brawl, might not want to see that. And I know Sean mentioned might not want to see that because of those pesky Minnesota fans. But from a NBA storyline perspective, man, not two small markets, but one small market and the biggest market besides the Lakers. Don't get no better than that.
Well, in Minnesota too, the historic drought as a state that they are in the world of sports, of like what is like 120 combined seasons without winning a title between all of their franchises, and it's not 120 years. It's not like it's seasons between like all the sports. So like, but that's still a very long time without getting a championship of any form. And I think obviously those ancillary pieces are pretty much what's taking Minnesota over the top. But I think let's not mistake what got them there, and what's keeping them there is Anthony Edwards and just how much he's really coming to his own. Like he's literally the Randy Orton now of the NBA. He is the legend killer. He is he is taking your favorite players from your childhood, and he is collecting them like infinity stones on a gauntlet, man. And like it's the same type of hopelessness that Thanos left you with too, where it's like, not only is he beating a lot of these guys, he's beating them into the ground. Yeah. And I thought it was extra poetic the way that this Warriors series went with I'm not sure if you guys saw or not, but the clip of Ant resurfacing where the Warriors said that they talked to him and said even if they had the number one pick, they wouldn't have drafted him. So pretty bold to say to a guy who's shown to be who doesn't need to be given reasons to be motivated. And obviously the Steph injury was a massive reason why they lost that series, but that quote bit him in the ass too.
Yeah. Can you guys imagine if Tyrese Halliburton won a chip? And we know the animosity he kind of has on Detroit for passing him up, going with Killian Hayes. We would never hear the end of it from him. He's one of those guys that does talk the talk, and he would bring it up. He would not, and Benedict Mathurin as well. I mean, there's a lot of names on that Pacers squad, and that would just be another kind of, it's thundering really hard out. Anyways, but that would be just an insane thing that I would not be able to live with.
Well,
yeah, I feel like I've kind of underrated the Pacers for the past 2 seasons, but I'm even though I respect them and stuff now, I would still be so surprised if they won a championship. They would be like the most surprising champion since. What do you guys think? Like maybe the Mavericks, maybe. Yeah, you know what I mean? That would be so surprising if Indiana won this year.
Probably the Mavericks, or honest to God, the 2004 Pistons. That's how far back you have to go, because a lot of the champions were pretty bona fide, expected to be there. Teams like Dallas are kind of the exception. Detroit, people expected, Shaq and Kobe to go out and dominate that series. This is per our friend, or at least my friend, Zariq Xavier. Tyrese Halliburton now has the same amount of conference finals appearances as the Sacramento Kings. So as bad as You might, sure, you could look through everything of the lens of your franchise and go, oh man, that looks real bad for the Pistons. But like the Sacramento Kings have way more reasons to feel bad about this trade than the Pistons do about passing them up in the draft. Another stat here. This is my clutch points. You guys want to guess the amount of playoff wins that the Kings and the Pacers have since that trade's been made?
So the Kings have 3,
Yeah.
and the Pacers probably like what, 12 or something?
16.
Wait, yeah.
Yeah,
It
makes
is
sense.
16-3.
And that was supposed to be like a rebuilding trade for the Pacers as well.
That was
Like
supposed
what?
that was supposed to catapult the Kings into contention.
Yep.
Contention for
What?
what? Free passes to Cancun?
I mean, even in real time, bro, it never made a lot of sense to me. Like,
No.
Aaron Fox is a score first guard. Halliburton has always played like this. You gotta make it work, man.
Yep. When you have the
Like,
talent,
you
you
gotta
make it
figure it
work.
out.
Exactly, Brennan. But boys, last episode we were on for an hour 45, hour 50. Let's get moving on to the next part.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's fair. We're probably well on pace of that if we keep this going.
Yeah, not trying to cut you off, Sean. I'm pretty sure you were about to preach some beautiful wisdom, but I want to get my challenge over with at the end so I can use the
Yeah, I
bathroom
get
and go to sleep and do whatever I need to do. Okay.
I get it. We're doing this for your butthole. I respect it.
Hunter Patterson took over for the athletic role after James Edwards left, and there was a long gap without coverage from the athletic, and that was my favorite source of Pistons writing at that point, was with James. And so big shoes to fill, but Hunter Patterson has done a fantastic job. We're going to be talking about his article that came out May 15th, that would have been yesterday, about free agent targets, Bobby Portis, Naz Reid, a handful of other players. There's some that we're going to talk about more than the others because obviously some players are more realistic than others, and some players have a short case, some players have a long case. Number one on his list is Naz Reid. I feel like we've talked a lot about him, but I would love to talk more about him. He's only going to be 26 to start next season, and he's one of those guys that you want on your team because he knows that he can be a number 2. I mean, in Minnesota, he's kind of stuck in that super 6-man role. In Detroit, he could flourish into an all-star, especially in this weaker Eastern Conference.
He's the perfect pick and roll partner for any modern point guard, especially for a guy like a Cade Cunningham. The thing that's great about a Naz Reid is he's a rim runner, but he's also a really good 3-point shooter. He's someone that can space the floor. He's someone that brings a fabric of unpredictability to the offense. And then on the defensive side, you're getting a stalwart big who's really versatile, who could defend on the perimeter as well as in the interior. I think he's like if you are to put another type of big alongside of Jalen Duren, I think he's like the exact archetype because you need someone who can space the floor, but also would be a really good roamer as a defender and kind of come in and mess some stuff up, kind of similar to how Evan Mobley and Jared Allen played in Cleveland. I think he's going to be one of the most highly sought after free agents in the league this year, just because he's someone that makes literally every single team possible better. But like, if there is like a guy that like you're going to potentially let one of these veteran free agents walk for, so you can go and like potentially sign someone, it's Naz Reid, just because he inherently raises your floor, but he also raises your ceiling. And again, you want to talk about the perfect guy to put in pick and roll action with Cade Cunningham or Jaden Ivey or any of the Pistons ball handlers or primary curators. Naz Reid's like the dictionary definition of the perfect pick and roll partner.
Yeah, and Brennan, I want to hear your take on this. I just want to bring up a stat I found on Shot Creator. In the playoffs, from the 3-point line, he's in the 92nd percentile in 3-point percentage at 46.7%. But he's also in the 91st percentile of true shooting at 68.1. So he can do it from everywhere. And you watch him with his dribble moves, he can create. He sometimes gets to show it, but when you're on Minnesota and it's kind of leaning towards Julius Randle having the ball, leaning towards Anthony Edwards having the ball, he's fortunate that he can also play off the bench to kind of have that time to do his thing. But if we were able to see, what would you say, like 35, 36 minutes a night, it would be a completely different story.
Yeah. Initially, before the kind of semi-brawl happened, I was like super high on this move actually coming true. But when the brawl happened, I said, well, we can count out Nas Reed coming to Detroit, kind of playfully, but I mean, like you guys said, man, he might be the most sought after
Yeah.
non-All-Star free agent this year. So, um, who would the Pistons have to like let go to get him? Obviously,
It,
Beasley, Hardaway,
well,
Schroeder.
I think you get away with.
Schroeder definitely, Schroeder
Okay.
definitely, and then they would probably have to bring back whichever one they can get. So probably they would have to pursue bringing back Hardaway and risk not bringing back Beasley. If I were to guess, is probably how they would have to make the money work. I will say um, this article was updated candidates wise to take into fact that Cade is going to be an All NBA selection this summer, and that is going to affect the salary cap. So this is something that that Hunter did lay out, and he did say that like they would also have to like essentially like let go of the rights of like their free agents essentially. So they would still have to like they would probably have to make a trade of some form to be able to make it work where they could have Nas Reed and a Malik Beasley and or a Schroeder or a Hardaway. But I think again, if there's like it's a calculated risk thing, right? And I think if there's a guy that you take that risk for on like a future bet, but also just like on like a production helps you win on a more consistent level, as awesome as Malik Beasley is, this is the type of player you let him walk for.
Well, in theory, can't you use your salary on those two and then do a sign and trade with Tobias just to kind of give Minnesota another reliable option if they have to take something on?
Well, the only thing is that they have some decisions coming as well. So
Yeah.
Minnesota, they have Julius Randle. They actually have to have conversations about this summer of wanting to bring him back. And even then, part of the reason why Minnesota can't bring him back is because, and part of why they made that cat trade to begin with was because they were in so dire need of financial flexibility, and
Yeah.
they just don't
Right.
have it. So whatever they could do in some form of move is probably going to be limited, because once you get into those aprons, which I know a lot of people get confused, the crux of them is the higher apron you're in, the less you can do as a roster, as far as like flexibility with what you can take on in contracts. Essentially, your hands are further tied the deeper you go into those aprons.
Yeah.
So it'll all depend on what they want to do. But I mean, I don't know about you guys. If I'm the Minnesota Timberwolves, this might sound like a hot take, but I think they might want Julius Randle back. Maybe.
I think you're seeing that they definitely would, based on
Oh,
what's
yeah.
going on in this
Yeah.
playoffs. Oh, was
Just a touch
was that
of
sarcasm?
Just a touch.
Guys, I'm
Just
really,
a touch.
you guys probably noticed
Just a little bit.
I'm really
Yeah.
bad and I'm gullible. And I like to do the things over text when I say, oh, I'm so bad at texting because I can never tell sarcasm. I can't do it in conversations as well. So
Honestly,
The sarcasm is 4K, Leggy.
yeah,
the
they
stream's
should have
only
a
in 720.
sarcasm. It should have a sarcasm like symbol for text. I will say that it should be something by now. It's
Yeah,
2025.
they should let you use italics.
Something. But in terms of Nas Reed's game, forget the contract stuff for a second. In terms of his game, I do agree that he is the perfect big next to Duran offensively. So like that pairing with him spacing and Duran in the paint, that pairing would be nasty because Reed is a decent passer too. Defensively, 36 minutes a game. I don't know if he is up to that yet. I do know in short spurts, like the minutes he plays now, he's passable defensively, but him being a starting four, I don't think he could do what Tobias did this year. But honestly, he's only 25, 26 or something, so he is pretty young. And I do think coming to a defensive infrastructure like Detroit, maybe he can reach that level kind of full time. Yeah, offensively, that pairing with the Pistons would be just nasty.
Yeah.
I mean, if they
Super
were to
nasty.
keep if they were able to keep Tobias Harris on, I would argue you probably wouldn't have to play Nas Reed 30, 35,
Oh,
36 minutes a night. You could probably get away with playing him 25, 30 plus minutes. And,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
once you get to playoff time, you'd probably have to rock it a little
Yeah.
bit more.
Fair.
But don't worry, Leggy. I made sure to get you set up. If I ever maybe one of those moments where I'm going to be a little sarcastic. I'll just pull up the sarcasm alert.
Sean, I
Got that for you.
appreciate
Ready
it.
to go.
You guys got me like no one else got me. So, similar situation, or I guess player. I don't want to say similar situation. Kind of the light of Naz Reid is Bobby Portis to me. It feels like Bobby Portis is a player that would be kind of the Walmart, the kind of the Spartan brand Naz Reid that we could get, but I would still be very happy with him. He's going to be 30 next year, and I feel like that contract isn't going to be nearly as large. It's probably going to be half that contract. But what do you guys think of Bobby?
Calling him Spartan brand, nasty work.
That contract part is enticing, though, like you said. It won't be as expensive as Nas. But personally, like kind of seeing how Bucks fans have reacted to him the last few years and just watching him, but the things that the Bucks fans hate about him, Pistons fans will love about him. Like how he takes 100 post-up shots a game, and sometimes it's like, man, kick that out. The Pistons actually do need that sometimes. Like they need an aggressive scorer next to Cade. So the things that the Bucks kind of hate about him, Detroit fans would be like, yeah, we need that because when Cade is off the ball or sometimes off the floor, we're kind of like, where's the offense coming from? You know? And defensively, same questions I have like Nas, but even more questions because I haven't even seen Bobby be passable since like championship. And that was next to a peak Giannis defensively and Brook Lopez at his best defensively. So it depends on the price, honestly, and what you would have to give up. But I wouldn't be too pressed to get the Walmart Nas Reid. Can't lie to you.
And I'm not going to lie. If you are going to go out and get the Walmart Naz Reid, it better be on the clearance rack after he has a 25 game suspension for PEDs, which he said it was some mix up with his trainer, his doctor, giving him a medication that was on the ban list, all that stuff, whatever. You have been in this league for too damn long. You know how fickle the league is with that stuff. You got to be like at a certain point, you are too old to know that you have to be 100% sure that what you're putting in your body is A-okay. And, you know, as much as that's on the medical team that's helping him, that's also on the player.
Yeah, that's one of those things where culturally is that kind of what the Pistons want to bring in. But I also think at the same time, we've seen how JB Bickerstaff can turn these veterans that kind of look like they're on their last legs-ish into immediate starters that in the next year could gain some serious interest from contenders again or get a bigger contract like Malik Beasley and Tobias Harris especially. Bobby Portis could be another one of those guys. So he might be 30. We might have seen the worst from him in the past year or two, but I am fully confident in this coaching staff to be able to bring it out and have him fit into this system while he can still play the game that he plays.
That's a good point about JB. That's a good point.
I know.
Would you rather have Bobby Portis at 4 years, 80 million or Brock Purdy at 4 years, 180 million? There's the sports question of the day.
Yeah, that Purdy, I like him too, but man, that was, yeah.
Yeah, that.
Of all the bags given out, that was sure one of them.
Yeah, that was something.
You got to pay the QB, and it's so hard to find that position and do it right, but at the same time, the Shanahan system, it helps Purdy be Purdy. So if he was anywhere else.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Real quick, I know we got to move on, or we're going to be here for 2 hours, but I will say, I thought that Purdy would like kind of reset the market in terms of bringing it back to normal. I thought that the 49ers would take a stance and kind of say, we're not paying you 50. We're going to give you 40, 45 a year. Because honestly, a quarterback that's in the middle shouldn't really be getting paid that top money. But like you said, quarterback is so valuable. I get it. But yeah.
Same annual value as Jared Goff. I don't know about that.
That's a tough one. I guess the age is on his side, but I mean, when you're a quarterback and you can play till you're 38, 39, age doesn't matter. We heard all the Bo Nix conversations about he's old, he played for 7 years in college, 6 years in college. He's going to be dust. And look at what he did. He put up, I mean, if there wasn't a Jaden Daniels, we'd be talking about Bo Nix in a whole different light. But I digress from that point. If we're considering Bobby Portis like the Charmander and Naz Reid, the Charizard, the Charmeleon, Santi Aldama. Anyone? Just kind of the middle there. Is Santi Aldama the Santi Aldama of Nas Reeds.
What a sentence. Is Santi Aldama the Santi Aldama of Nas Reeds?
Okay, I'm trying to be hip. You know, the hello fellow kids. You know, that's like the Buscemi meme holding the skateboard. Yep. That's how I felt with that. Anyways,
salutations, fellow youth. He's an intriguing prospect. He's a nice player. When I get to Memphis players and Memphis products, I kind of get a little apprehensive just because of the fact that they're almost kind of like Miami in the sense of like they find these guys out of nowhere that play really well in their system and in their kind of like within their ecosystem. Also, he's going to be a restricted free agent, and I would think as a younger player with not quite sure what they're going to do with Ja Morant, but I think he's probably one of those guys that they're going to keep around in some fashion to play alongside for the future. But I mean, listen, man, he's 6'11" with a 6'11" wingspan. What's not to like about that? He's someone who has quite a bit of variety to his game. The word of the day, versatility and size, and he's got both of those in droves. So, I mean, if the opportunity were to present itself, it's certainly an interesting prospect. And if that's someone that Trajan were to go out and target, that certainly fits the mold and the profile of the type of players that he would want to bring in. But at the same time, if I were the Memphis Grizzlies and I had him on a restricted free agency, I'd probably have a pretty hard time letting him walk.
Yeah. I do feel like Jake LaRavia getting shipped out earlier in the season was kind of the writing on the wall is like we're gonna keep Aldama. And recently though, I was talking to some of my friends, they were asking me what's my favorite player archetype, and I was telling them I love like players that's my size dominating the NBA because I just respect that so much because it's like, man, you only this tall and you one of the best players in the league. But on the flip side, I also said that's just my preference. I ain't winning basketball. All our players that can dribble, pass, and shoot, you just got to have them. Now, Dama fits that to a T. He he can shoot the ball, attack closeouts, make the right decision. Detroit doesn't really have a lot of players offensively that can do that. They kind of got some players that can like attack the rim, some players that can guard. There's not really a lot of complete offense or just complete players in general. And Aldama he isn't a godly defender, but he's in the right place a lot of the time. So it always goes back to the contract, how much you're willing to pay these guys. But whatever you are willing to pay, Memphis will probably match it, to be honest, because
yeah,
he's a good team player and stuff. So, but I would like targeting him.
He probably fits the timeline the best of these guys just because of his age. He's only 24 years old, and you talk about a runway to play alongside a Cade and and an Ivy and a Duran. That's a pretty long runway if he can stay healthy. But yeah, I mean, when you're in the restricted free agency market, that is a very tricky game to play because you do not dictate what the outcomes are.
Yeah, it's very tough as well because, like you were mentioning, he fits the timeline, but he's also raw. And when he's a restricted free agent, you have to put in a lot of money to get him. And if you put in that money, and if it doesn't work, that is instantly a negative contract, instantly something that's going to hurt you in the future. Unless you do some front-loaded BS like poison pill contract, stuff like that. Interesting topics we could go into there. Any other points on this dude?
No, not really. He's going back to Memphis.
Yeah, it feels like a very obvious point here. And the rest of the list, I will say, isn't super enticing. There's names in here that could kind of fit, but all of them feel like you're bringing them in to supplement for the loss of someone. And so there is an addition by subtraction. It's just a negative maybe, but maybe we could be wrong. Like I was saying with the JB point, though, he can pull the best out of these players. If he did it with Malik Beasley, if he did it with Tim Hardaway Jr., who's saying he couldn't do it with Karis LeVert?
Yeah, I think the most interesting name on here of the remaining names, just because of his production and as well as just his the culture that he brings. Steven Adams, I think, would certainly be an interesting player. Like he's just every young team that he's been a part of has been a team that he's uplifted, or has been a team where he's been able to go in and contribute as a leader, but also just as a just as a player as well. I'm not gonna lie. Am I saying this partially just because I would love to be in a media room and hear the quotes that comes out of Steven Adams' mouth, absolutely I would, because he's the best quote in the freaking league. But at the same time, like if, in the event that you don't have a Paul Reed again, like that's probably as good of a third big as you can get. And that you're going to get solid rebounding and really good size down low. Yeah. So at the very least, he's an interesting name. But yeah, it's when you're talking about like the options that the Pistons have in free agency, like when their main priority is going to be trying to bring back the guys that they have, there's not really a whole lot of wiggle room to work with, but it just shows that like, the Pistons are suddenly going to be more of a player than they were in years past, because they actually look like a pretty tantalizing option for veterans or players around the league. Like guys are going to want to play with Cade Cunningham. That's a real thing.
Yep. And it's going to be those key rotational players, I think, as well. Like they're all going to want to flock here. And some of them that would say, I want to go to a contender. I mean, we're seeing what New York in Indiana is doing right now. It's not Boston. It's not Cleveland. Who's to say Detroit isn't on that path to being what Indiana is? Because me personally, at his best, I think Cade Cunningham is a better player than Tyrese Halliburton. So if you get him a co-star, think about them on that trajectory with a little bit more spice on it.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of Steven Adams as replacing B-Ball Paul, Steven Adams is a starter in the NBA. So it's like if he's your third big, man, just the leadership. He's played with Russ. He's played with just a lot of great players. KD played with a lot of great players. So just having Steven Adams, especially on the cheap side, I would do a lot for just the culture. Like he clearly fits the Detroit, grit and grind type stuff. Not grit and grind, but the blue collar work ethic and stuff. But Trendon Watford was on that list. He is decent. Not a game changer or anything like that. I'm with you guys. He will be a player who is coming in to kind of supplement the loss of, say, Hardaway if we can't keep him, or Beasley or something. Obviously not the shooter that they are, but he is a bucket. And I did enjoy him trash talking Tyrese Halliburton in the beginning of the season. He was like, you guys were a playoff team. Y'all was double teaming me. I don't know. I just enjoyed that. Just a lot of players go at Halliburton, and I mean Wofford had a good game. He had like 30 that game. So not, like I said, not a game changer, but he is a player that I do like to watch. Like when he got it going, he is a bucket, and it's cool to watch.
Yeah,
he's an intrigue.
Sorry.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'll just say something short and real quick. Like he's also one of those raw players where you have to be careful what you give him, because if it doesn't work, that's kind of a tough contract. But I'll also say he's not coming in and going to be a high role player right away. Like he's going to get impactful, meaningful minutes, but you're not counting on him for 25, 30 minutes because you have players in those positions. It just feels like a fit where, I mean, yes, he'd kind of be replacing kind of what a Tim Hardaway Jr. minute-wise, but different positions like shooting guard to power forward. So it's how would he fit within what we have, especially with Asar, got some of those backup minutes with power forward when he was in, and Ron Holland even stretched there. So what does it mean for that small forward, power forward rotation if you bring him in? So that was my point. So Sean, do you have any input on that?
I was
sorry,
Brennan.
Say,
oh yeah, real quick though, Sean, before you go, just to kind of piggyback off that point about Wofford, I would say regular season wise, maybe he could take Fontecchio minutes. Fontecchio kind of gave you nothing this season. He kind of didn't even space the floor. Teams at a point were kind of like, yeah, we're not really worried about him. He could kind of just come in and just be a spark plug scoring wise. Like I agree 100%. He is not coming in getting 25 minutes a game and stuff. But yeah
Brennan, that was a really good point about the Fontecchio, and it's sad because I thought Fontecchio would be a key piece in this offense this year, and when we got him, I thought he would be a key piece going forward. But you're right; those minutes were evaporated in the playoffs. Didn't sniff the floor, so you put a Watford in that position. That makes a lot more sense for what you were wanting from Fontecchio with better defense, and even if the shot isn't falling. He's not a great shooter, but he's gotten better every single year. So he can instantly slot in and be that key defender. And imagine a lineup of Ron, Asar, Watford, Stu, and you put that with Cade. I mean, that's just an elite defensive crew right there.
Yeah, what I was going to say is, to me, like with Watford, he's one of those guys where he's an intriguing role player who's able to go in and contribute. on a scrappy Nets team that didn't have a whole lot of expectations. He's one of those guys, and I'm curious how he performs on a team
Winning
that,
basketball.
yeah, a team that has more defined expectations, but a more defined hierarchy as well. Whereas in Brooklyn, it was kind of a wild, wild west, a lot of maneuvering, adjustments, and the roster changing as the season goes on. So guys have a little bit, have a little bit more of a freedom that they can play with, so to speak. Whereas in Detroit, it's like you are coming in on a team with a very clear number one, with a very clear hierarchy of who's running things and when. And, you're coming in also now, like, as we're going to talk about it later in the show, like, you're coming in with elevated expectations. So,
for sure.
you were on a, like, don't get me wrong, like, Brooklyn was like a fun story last season too, but with all due respect, who's watching Brooklyn Nets games? Like the Pistons are going to have some nationally televised games next season now, man. They're going to be one of the spotlight teams, young spotlight teams of the league. And so, not to say that he can't handle it. Obviously, a lot of these guys are solid, but it's just, it's kind of like this is where it gets a little bit more nitpicky, and where you really have to be smart with the money that you're going to be spending, because you have some real financial decisions right around the corner.
Yeah, and Sean, that was a good point about talking about the national TV games. We're going to get more into that in your segment, because, just easily early sneak peek. Like, I do think the Pistons are going to be one of the best teams in the East next year.
Very well could be.
So, guys, anything else on this list? Any names on here you really want to dig into? There's a few more.
I thought the Quentin Grimes shout out was funny.
Yeah, the Quentin Grimes.
Yeah,
because he did have a great year, and you could utilize what he could give you based on what he did in Philly. But to think that people are talking about that being a makeup move for what they did already with Tim Hardaway, but I would not take that trade back in any sort of way, because what Tim Hardaway was able to bring as a role player, he fit exactly what we needed.
Yeah, all these hindsight GMs, I'm sorry, Brent. I was just going to say, I don't get what these hindsight GMs want. Like, Tim Hardaway Jr. came in and played really good basketball for them. Yep. Like, hit shots at a pretty high clip. He was one of their best playoff performers this season. He was one of their lead charge takers this season. Like, he came in, like, did he blow off the doors? Absolutely not. But, like, if you thought Quentin Grimes was going to be what he showed at the end of that season, you're lying.
Yeah, that's a bad Philly team.
You're lying.
That's what I was going to say about Grimes. I think that he showed that he has game, but he also showed he needs the ball to rock out like that.
Yeah.
Like, if Quentin Grimes if he has to stand in a corner like he would with Cade and Ivy, I don't think that he's end of the season Philly Grimes with a team with aspirations to win some rounds next year or so.
Yeah, can I copy and paste that onto number 6 on this list, Cam Thomas?
Cam Thomas.
See, I do think he's better because he's shown it more on a consistent level, and he's put up those historic point scoring totals.
Yeah.
But I was more talking about the point of, we know you can play on a team like the Nets. What happens when you go to a team looking for home court advantage in the playoffs?
Oh, so dear God, can Cam Thompson play 2 minutes without the basketball in his hands? Good Lord. Can he not dribble for 23 of the 24 seconds on the shot clock? Like, this is the one on the list where I'm just like, I'm sorry, Hunter. I love you, but no.
Well, it depends on the market though, because like Leggy said about Nas Reed being a super 6-man, that's actually the perfect role for Cam Thomas. If you have Cam Thomas on your roster and you say just go score the ball, like, honestly, come in the game, come again for Cade, don't do nothing else, just go score. That's when he's at his best. So, Sean, like you said, can he have 2 minutes start dribbling the ball? No, he cannot. That is his game, and he has defined that game for the past. This would be his 5th year in the league. At LSU, he was a bucket like this. We've heard stories about him playing one-on-one with KD and Kyrie, holding his own. Like, he is just a flat-out scorer. He is not in the business of making guys better. And is that winning basketball? If you're the star player, I will argue no. But if you're in that Jordan Clarkson role, I would say it can have some value if you're not the guy on the team. If you're a 6-man, it has value.
I love that Jordan Clarkson comp.
Knicks Celtics score update, by the way.
Yes, please.
Just Knicks 92, Boston 53
Dear God.
with a
So
minute
you
to
know,
go in the third quarter. The Celtics have their entire bench out there playing, and the New York Knicks have 4 of their 5 starters in the most Tom Thibodeau fashion humanly possible.
say sound about right.
Yep. Which,
So
hey, maybe Tom's just looking out for my parlay. That's what I like to think. 3 out of the 4 legs hit. We just need Brunson to score 30. So once we get there, then you can take him out.
How much you got now?
He got 18. So yeah, it's
Hopefully,
not going to hit. Don't worry. I've already accepted it. We're already at the acceptance stage. If it does, that would be awesome.
Cool.
But like,
yeah,
yeah, great. But like, at the
I'm
very
rooting
least,
for you though, bro.
yeah, I did also bet the Knicks at -2.5. Something told me they were going to win by more than 2.5, and I think they're going to
That's
win
a
more by
really
two
good
and a half.
bet.
And don't worry, Leggy. Sarcasm alert.
Okay, thank you. Okay, enough of your
I
shit,
love it.
Sean Brennan. You didn't do anything, but enough of your shit too, man. Hunter Patterson, this was a great article, and if you haven't checked him out, he has really done great work. And like I mentioned, James Edwards was a really big staple. I think Hunter Patterson is really able to hold his own in that regard, putting out great content. And the last thing I want to say is when you're talking about people who are close to the organization making lists like these and talking about specific players, there's a reason why these players get brought up. It's different than if I went and wrote an article and said, this is my gut feeling on who the Pistons should get. They should go and get Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Giannis Antetokounmpo. No, that's not happening. These are names that are grounded in reality. So always think about that when you're reading content from established people who have ears and eyes in the organization. These are names that are really realistic and we'll probably be hearing more about.
Yeah, Hunter Patterson's not only is he one of the best reporters we have on the beat for the Pistons, he's just one of the best people. Yeah. And to Leggy's point, these are the guys that have the finger on the pulse of the team. So anyone who's going out making mock trades for Zion Williamson, I think it says a lot that the people who actually cover the team haven't said a damn thing about any of those names.
Okay, guys, we're going to be moving on. And as this, do you guys have crazy thunder right now, or is it just up north?
I don't. I do hear it.
Yeah, last night we had a thunderstorm and a tornado watch, so I stayed at home last night. I planned on going out, but I stayed home.
I had the full blown. I had the warning. We were beyond the watch. We were at full warning state.
My sister-in-law did too, down because she's in that Grand Rapids area as well.
Yep, that pesky Grand Rapids area.
Okay, moving on. Talking about the lottery, and this doesn't have to be a huge segment here, but we just saw another year where teams who tanked flat out didn't play their players and got in trouble for it throughout the year. Lauri Markkanen didn't play much, and there was probably a reason, and it's called tanking. They get shafted. And is it really shafted? Because this is what the lottery is supposed to do. But when you end up with the Mavericks 1, Spurs 2, 76ers 3, Hornets 4, that, I know I talked earlier about Knicks Pacers being a doomsday. This is flat out world detonation. Because this was the absolute worst case scenario for me. And I know I've been saying that about a lot of different things. But you trade Luka and you get Cooper Flag. You get Wemby, Stephon Castle, and you get Dylan Harper. Sixers get a prime trade asset. Honestly, they should blow it all up and just build around Maxey, whatever they can get at 3. I don't know. What do you guys think about the lottery and how it's kind of fared for these teams? And especially from that Detroit perspective, Sean, I know you mentioned that in a text. We've seen how it can affect teams. Now that we're not in it, it feels less personal. It feels less, the league's screwing us, man. And we're saying, you know what? Utah, Washington, do better. Don't do that. We were in their shoes, bitching and moaning about it last year as well. So I just want to hear your guys' takes on that.
Go ahead, Brennan.
Well, I kind of think the Pistons are kind of different than those teams a little bit. Like we got Cade.
No.
Washington is looking to finally get number 1 so they can finally get a guy. That's the only thing the Wizards are missing. Like I wrote an article about it probably some months ago. The Wizards and the Pistons rebuild has been the inverse. The Wizards already got their pieces. They're just missing a guy. The Pistons had the guy, and they were trying to build towards getting something. Now they got all the young guys with Malik in them. So I feel bad for the Wizards. I'm kind of glad Utah didn't get the pick. Not gonna lie, I wanted the Wizards to get it, but
Yeah.
I feel bad for them, man. And obviously, like you said, the Pistons getting the fifth overall pick all those years in a row, being the worst team in the league. I hated it because I know what you mean. This is what the lottery is supposed to represent. Like it's random, it's just by chance. But man, something about the NFL model with the worst team getting the first pick. I'm like. Ah, but that does encourage tanking even more. But once you have the probability system and teams have a 14% chance of getting the first pick if they're the worst team in the league, that incentivizes tanking too. Like they're just gonna play the odds.
Yeah.
Like
There's no win.
So
I mean, yeah, it's really it's hard. It's hard to combat it. It's hard to combat tanking.
yeah. So I liked the change initially because the system they have now went from, for those that don't remember, it used to be that the worst team had a 25% chance of winning the number 1 overall pick, which is when you saw guys like Sam Amick and, other general managers realize, wait, if the odds are that high and we're this bad, why are we not going for that? And whereas when this change was made, they made it so that the odds get flattened. Those top 3 teams only have 14.5% chance. And then it goes into like, oh, well, who can get into the top 5 or fall out of the top 5, all those things. But I think where it's massively overcorrected is you have these organizations, and like the one team that voted against this proposition was the Oklahoma City Thunder. And the reason why Sam Presti, like his argument was, well, how are we supposed to get stars in Oklahoma City if we can't get them in the lottery or if we can't get them in the draft? Right? Like the half of the league is not a free agency destination.
Yeah.
It's just not, and especially when you look at teams like the Wizards and the Jazz and the Hornets, this is their only route they're ever getting a Cooper Flag or a Victor Wembanyama or a LeBron James. Like that, it is not happening via free agency. And if it's available via trade, it's going to be well after their prime. So the truth of the matter is, I do think that how much teams are realizing that like tanking is not always the way to go. I think there is a positive in that, because now teams realize like, oh, well, if we stay competitive, you can be rewarded for that, because Dallas, they were a competitive team. Like we can get into it's a whole other pod about the
Yes, it is.
the fortunes of Nico Harrison, and like that is a 30 for 30 documentary that needs to come out tomorrow, right? But when you talk about just like people have been throwing out all these crazy wacky new solutions for how we can change the lottery, and to me it's like, guys, why are we overthinking this? Like, why don't we just, the odds were initially like 25% for the best team to get the number 1 pick. Why don't we go in the middle? Why don't we go to like 18%? Why don't we go to 19%? Why don't we make it just a little bit higher? Because those few percentage points make a massive difference. And don't get me wrong, like as great as it is for the city of Dallas to have that type of resurgence and to have that hope, as awesome as it is for a team like Philly to go up and now you can bolster, that core. It's like for the long-term health of the league, this is not good. Like when you have franchises like the Wizards and the Jazz and the Hornets, not to keep harping on them, but when you have franchises who continually have no hope and no light at the end of the tunnel, and the only way you're going to get out of this mess is if those ping pong balls bounce your way. Like that is truly the only method for all these teams. Like it is literally the end game scenario where it's like 1 in like the 1 trillion. Like that is building an NBA team. And like you said, Brennan, earlier, it's like the Pistons are fortunate like that they were able to weather all of those number 5 picks. The reason why they were able to do so is because they landed the number 1 pick the 1 year they really needed to. And to get the guy that could really cultivate and really bring a franchise together, right? Like that wasn't going to, like, all due respect to like Zachary Risachet, that wasn't going to be the Risachet pick.
Yeah. What if the Pistons in 21 didn't land Cade and they didn't land the number 1 pick. Let's say they landed 5. And were the odds still the same at that point? Or was that before they changed it?
That was I believe the year that the Pistons won the lottery, and I could be wrong, but I believe it was the final year of the old odds. Again, I could be wrong, but and even then, I don't even think they had like the best odds. Like if I remember correctly, I think they jumped up in the lottery.
Yeah,
when they won.
Yeah.
That's the only time they ever have.
Yeah,
and I just want to say, like, what could they fall to? Well, let's just say it's 5 or 6, or even 7. Let's say instead of Cade, with those same 5s the next few years, you get a Josh Giddey, you get a Jalen Suggs, Jonathan Kuminga. Imagine Franz would be good.
like, and he's not as good as K, but that's way better than the names you just named as the number
But
one
I don't
option.
think that year they would have valued that. Like if Troy Weaver was in the room, I mean, I could see a Jonathan Kuminga, Josh Giddey sort of selection there. Probably Jalen Suggs, to be completely honest. But let's say you have that with what we have now, and they still haven't landed the number 1 pick. I mean, this year, would they have landed Cooper Flagg, and would that have changed the fortunes? Would now you have all those role players to fill in kind of what the Wizards are doing? But we'd be in the purgatory, just like all these other teams.
Yeah, and it's until you land that guy that you are just completely spinning your wheels and waiting for that direction and that clarity. And it's like we would not be where we are if we did not win that lottery. And that's just like, and don't get me wrong, you have so many franchises in this league that have found stars beyond the number 1 pick. That is not the only way. But if you want the way with the best odds, the best chance, the most, like the statistical best outcome, is to do it through the draft or to somehow land a big star via trade or free agency. But the truth of the matter is the Miami Heat do not function under the same rules as the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Yeah.
Right? The Utah Jazz do not go about business the same way as the New York Knicks because they can't.
Yeah.
They just can't. So I think the league, like we'd been screaming from the mountaintops just because when you do see a team who has the worst record in the league 2 years in a row, really now the last 3 years in a row, the team with the worst record in the league got the number 5 pick.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for the Pistons having that miraculous, lottery win, but also that miraculous jump they had this season, we would probably be talking about, oh yeah, now that team's going to be in position to be in the lottery again.
To kind of expand this conversation a little bit more, like the reason why they flattened the odds was because tanking was such a black eye on the league. I just don't agree with that, man. Like, and some of these teams are tanking, but a lot of them just aren't good. And it gets to the point where it's like, okay, let's just sit them down. Let's just try to get a good draft pick. The Wizards could have tried their best this year. They were not finishing like in the play-in picture. It just wasn't happening. Utah, it wasn't happening. So the fact that they think that, well, the league thought tanking was such a, everybody hated it. Those people that hate tanking that much, they don't like the NBA, period. Like, you're not gonna win them. You're not gonna win them guys over.
I will say
Go ahead.
Philly, the back half of the season was pretty egregious with the level of tank that they put on. I would say that, like, I agree with you, Brennan, that teams like the Wizards are like, they are truly that bad, right? Like there are some teams where it is like, you just are like there are certain teams where it is like, they are just rebuilding. Like, yes, they're not going out making aggressive moves to try and win now, but like the Washington Wizards are not, like, before the season, they were not a team that was expected to be where, not where they were right now. A team like the Jazz, where you have a ton of assets, you have Danny Ainge, you have Will Hardy, who's one of the best young coaches in the league. You have Lauri Markkanen, who's a really interesting young player who you are deliberately sitting games to try and not win, to tank, and are getting fined for sitting players and not letting them play and tanking. Like, it's one thing, like, I agree with you of like, I don't think tanking is like, and people who like just point to tanking, like, a lot of those people don't even know what's going on in the league anyway, right? Or they couldn't even tell you which teams are actually tanking. But it is like, especially like when you have seasons like this where it's the Cooper Flag season or the Cooper Flag race. Like Brooklyn was making trades throughout the season to actively make themselves worse so that they could tank and make their lottery odds better. You know? So I think like it's like there are like I don't think it in a lot of cases it's as bad as people necessarily say that they are, but there are some scenarios where it is, oh no, it's as bad as people are saying it is.
But again, it's like we said, getting that guy with the number one pick is how you really change your franchise's trajectory for the most part. It's like, would you rather be the Chicago Bulls and go for it every single season and be the 10th seed every single season, or potentially you got Cooper Flag on the horizon? You say, you know what, I'm gonna trade Dennis Schroeder. I'm gonna trade him. I'm gonna try to be as bad as I can so I can get a chance at getting Cooper Flag. And honestly, if I was a fan of one of those teams, I would not want to. If I was a fan of the Jazz, I would not want to play Laurie Marketing every game and win 36 games in the West and miss the play-in. I wouldn't want to do that personally.
Yeah, people always shit on the Bulls. People shit on all those teams that are always in the middle. People talk about the play-in dynasties that we're seeing teams doing that year after year after year, and there's a handful of them. The thing is,
Miami.
Yeah. Why? Everybody hates it. But then everyone also says tanking sucks. How are those teams supposed to get better in the middle? That you can't. Unless you land some generational Giannis, that's not happening. The way you have to do it is to get bad. And what's the point of going and being bad one year, getting a great player, and then saying, let's just be mediocre now? Well, you're not going to be able to build around that young player anymore because you're not getting pieces to put around him and you're not doing it in a fashionable manner to where it makes sense. Then that young player's career is over in your city because you can't get better. You don't have young players around him. You don't have assets. That's how you see those guys go to those big markets. And people are saying, oh, they're force-feeding these guys to these big markets. Well, it's because people are trying to force these teams to get too good too early so you can't properly build around the young guy.
But the thing that's so interesting is that the thing that it's funny about the system that the NBA has set up is you're almost more incentivized to be mediocre and be in the middle and try and get in the play-in tournament. And even if you fall short, 2 years in a row now, we've seen two of the teams that are right on the bubble and making the playoffs win the number one pick, right?
Yeah,
and
it's like a 1 point percent.
Yeah, and it's funny because the Chicago Bulls, they literally had the same record as the Dallas Mavericks. People keep pointing this out. There are two things that cost the Chicago Bulls the number one overall pick in Cooper Flag. The first one is a coin flip that they did before the lottery to break their tiebreaker. So think about that. A coin flip was the difference between the number 12 pick and getting Cooper Flag. The other thing was that miraculous half-court shot that Josh Giddey hit against the Lakers to win that game in the clip that went absolutely viral and probably one of the best nights to be a Chicago Bulls fan in years. Well, that night probably also just cost you Cooper Flag. So
exactly.
And then even teams like the Portland Trailblazers, they were one digit off on the ping pong balls as far as like the winning combination get number one pick. Like there are multiple teams that
would you say that was
sliver away.
Portland.
Oh, that would have been so fun. Cooper in Portland.
That would have been sick. Sick. Him and Denny would have been nasty, bro. That would have been nasty.
Real quick before. Sorry, I was just going to say before we keep on moving, we do have a comment. I'm a Sixers fan. What's the Pistons fan base's thoughts on Tobias Harris? The big thing for me is Tobias Harris was able to go into, and not to change subjects from what we were doing really quick, but I want to make sure we can do these before it's too late. But the thing with me with Tobias is I feel like year after year he was put in a role that wasn't really fitting him. And now we're seeing him in Detroit score a comfortable 15 points per game, less than what he's done for a majority of his career, and have the biggest impact of arguably his career. So we're seeing a kind of a career renaissance of him playing within a system. And I think that just speaks more to the Pistons than Tobias.
To quote Dan Campbell, you're good enough for Detroit, Tobias Harris.
Yeah.
I think the concept of beauty is in the eyes of the beholder, but on top of that, expectations are set in what they get signed for, or what's set out in the beginning. And I think it's different when he's in Philadelphia playing under a max contract, supposed to be the number 2 or number 3 scoring option alongside Joel Embiid on a team that's expected to contend for titles, and being one of the key veterans on a team that just lost 28 in a row that's just trying to get back into prominence in the Eastern Conference, right? Like, I think there's something to be said about those expectations. But I also think the Julius Randle and Tobias Harris parallels are kind of interesting because they both went out of big markets where they were, focal points of their fan bases, of a lot of their frustrations, pointed a lot of the blame was towards them. And they're now both on brand new teams, and we're both absolutely thriving on those new teams. One of them, which, Tobias had a hell of a lot better of a season than Paul George did. And Paul George was brought in under those same expectations. So I would point out that I think it's interesting that Paul George is now essentially having those same struggles and in that same situation. Like, some guys, as talented as they are just not meant to play under the pressure cooker that is these massive markets.
Yeah.
And I think as great of a sports city as Philadelphia is, and as passionate as they are, that can also be one of the most toxic environments for a player to be in the history of sports.
Yeah, Tobias.
Just what it is.
Tobias was definitely a renaissance this year. Post defense, that is not something I expected. Like you guys said, man, the expectations are way different, drastically different. So, like we always say, we've been saying it since we started the show, man. Sometimes in Philly, he was forced to be the second option. It's not what he is at this point of his career. It's not what he is. When you expect Tobias to just give you what he can give you and compete, that's when he starts to give you 20 points randomly. So he is doing what he's asked to do in Detroit, and he's been the vet, man. He's been the difference maker in terms of that leadership. So super steady, super consistent. I know he had some, I know he had one stinker in the playoffs, but still overall probably like a minus signing this year, man. It's a great season for Tobias from what we expected from him.
Yeah, the last point on that I want to make is I want to ask you guys, this is right after we signed Tobias Harris and we got all that news and all that negativity. If I told you in 31.6 minutes he would average 13.7 points on 34% from 3 with 2 assists, 6 rebounds, what would you think our record would be? What do you think his impact on the team would be? How do you think the fan base would react to that?
Oh, just numbers wise, you would think he was underwhelming. But like once you like kind of dig in deeper, you realize that the second half of the season he turned it up, was way more efficient, and he got more engaged defensively. That's when you realize like it's kind of deeper than numbers here.
Yep.
Yeah. And I would say, like, the only way that's a good thing is if that means that the young guys are stepping up in his stead. And I think that's what you saw when Asar Thompson came back from his blood clot issues. I think it's what you saw from like guys like Jalen Duren stepping up and becoming a different player as the season went on. I think a lot of things kind of had to go right this season for Detroit, and they did.
Yeah, think about Malik Beasley, Tim Hardaway Jr., and Tobias Harris. Like, they all had their flaws this year and they all had their struggles. But for the most part, they were on all of the year. And I wouldn't have given that a high percentage chance to happen at all before the year. So seeing that all work, I mean, can it happen next year? We saw in the playoffs, though, Malik cool off. We saw Tim Hardaway cool off in games. We saw Tobias cool off in games. But we put up a hell of a fight. So it's just kind of showing that the young guys were able to step up at that point, too. So,
yeah, and everyone shoots worse in the postseason, or just about everyone does. So, to be honest,
even Jokic, even Shea, Brunson, happens.
So that everyone
Better
that's like,
defenses.
oh, well, his performance went down during the postseason. It's like, the reason why we highlight how special it is when guys' performances go up in the postseason is because it doesn't happen. Like, that's not normally what happens. That's why a guy like a Jalen Brunson's like so special. That's why Jamal Murray's like one of the biggest paradoxes in the league. That's why like Aaron Gordon is being viewed in a whole different light after this postseason.
yeah, guys, we got another comment. How many more games would the Pistons have won this past season if J.I. didn't go down? And that's an interesting, controversial one because when he went down, the Pistons were a few games under 500. And they looked like a decent team. They looked like they were going to be a play-in team. that's when we saw Cade absolutely turn up, and we saw the shooting surround him. But at the same time, once the playoffs hit, we desperately could have used the Jaden Ivey, and we saw Dennis Schroeder pick it up because we needed that other ball handler. Regular season, I think the formula is kind of the shooting around Cade, but when the games really start to matter, that's when you need a guy like J.I. So I don't know if the win total would have been higher, but I can tell you in the playoffs, it might have been a little bit different, but we were already very competitive. So would that have meant winning a series? Well, we might not have been against the Knicks because our record might not have been there. So There's so many ifs there. Yeah.
Also, Cade going berserk when Ivy went down was out of necessity because he was obviously the only scorer left. But Asar was just getting back into the lineup when Ivy went down. So it's like if Ivy would have played with Asar a little bit more, I think that could have been a nice little pairing.
They maybe played a month together, maybe.
Yeah, and Asar was playing like what 16 to 17 minutes a game or something low. You know what I mean? So that speedy tandem right there would have been nasty in transition. The Pistons already were nasty in transition, but think about Ivy paired with Asar in transition. So I don't know record-wise how much you go up, like you said, but just like as a total team, that's a better team on Ivy, 100%.
Yeah, I think it would have been a good for at least like 3 or 4 more wins in the regular season. But like, I think when you're talking about like where the effect was really seen, it was when the Pistons got to the postseason and the game slowed down and they had to play more in the half court and they needed guys to create their own shots more. Like during the regular season, you can disguise a lot of things if you're in a good rhythm, if you're, like coming into your own in a lot of other areas. And, like there were guys who just stepped up at really high levels. I also think the timing of bringing in a Dennis Schroeder and like his ability to, for a short window, replicate at least a decent amount of that. Like, I think that was like honestly such a big thing that people, I don't think fully appreciate is that like, yeah, that month, like they played good basketball and they were able to like figure it out and like kind of get by. But like this team really came into its own when they got that other ball handler again, that other shot creator, that other point guard that can kind of like help set things up. So I think that's the thing that like, if you're a Pistons fan, but also just like if you work for the Pistons, like I think what you have to feel really like intrigued by or optimistic about is the fact that like they've already had this level of success and they still haven't even gotten their core four to really play together yet. Not for significant stretches of time.
Yeah, I looked it up, and Asar and Jaden Ivey played 11 games together this year. And like you said, Brennan, a lot of those were in shortened minutes for Asar. He really didn't get that minutes restriction taken off for quite a while, well after Jaden Ivey got out.
Well, and yeah, they might have had the minutes together during the Monty season, but like, let's be honest. Do you count anything during the Monty season?
Nope, turn in that page. Let's move on.
To the what? What season?
He who must not be named. He who must be named.
Okay. Great comments, guys. Keep them rolling. Sean, we're about to move to half court.
What is going on? I want to welcome you from half court for today. Sean Murphy, joined by my 313 Connect guys. Boys, let's get right into it. The Boston Celtics are about to be eliminated from the Eastern Conference semifinals as we're recording, meaning another year without a repeat champion. Not only that, but Jason Tatum, shockingly and tragically, I would say, tore his Achilles, and as mentioned down below, the Achilles heel of the Boston Celtics has arrived. They are at a breaking point where they're going to have some really difficult conversations this summer. They have a $500 million payroll next year if they bring everyone back, and with no Jason Tatum, that's just not tenable. When you don't win, when you don't even go to the conference finals, you just can't bring back that type of payroll, especially when you're a new ownership group who just spent all this money to acquire the team in the first place. So, Leggy and Brennan, what I want to throw to you guys is, if you're the GM of the Boston Celtics, just how much are you tearing this down? Like, are we going down to the studs? Are we tearing this thing down and building building a brand new home on the property? Are we doing a nice light remodel? Like, if this is an HGTV show, how hard are we going here?
It's such a tough point, and it's so devastating to still be talking about what Jason Tatum is going to have to go through and what this team's going to go through. And when he comes back, he might never be the same player. He might be a fraction of that. So what they're lucky though about is they have another $50 million a year player in Jaylen Brown. So you're paying that guy that much money to be able to carry that load. And a lot of people have said, well, if Jaylen Brown was on his own team, they would be good. They'd be contenders as well. People think he's better than Tatum. We're really going to be able to see that next year if they keep him. So I don't agree with that though, Brennan, but it is a funny point that is constantly brought up. So
yeah, for sure.
Do you keep that and run it back a year because you're already putting in a lot of money? Or did you guys hear the reports about them doing an interview with Cooper Flagg?
Did.
I mean, that's great and all. I mean, I've been able to interview a lot of people. That doesn't mean that like I'm going to be able to like secure them under my line of work.
No,
I've interviewed Jamel McMillan. I don't think he's leaving the Motor City Cruise to come co-host from Half Court.
Well, Sean, I'm looking at the breadcrumbs here, man. Just imagine the Mavericks if they were able to trade that pick and get something around Jaylen Brown. And I don't know money-wise. I don't know. That's very copium about looking at one small little piece of information. But if I can just like imagine, that would be a fun fit there in Dallas. But thinking about realism here, I think they kind of go another year and kind of see what Jaylen Brown can get them to.
If Nico
I think
Harrison,
it would be.
I'm sorry,
I was gonna say
real quick. If Nico Harrison trades that pick, let alone for Jaylen Brown, I think the riots that we would see in the city of Dallas would be unlike anything we've seen in a long time. I'm sorry, Brett, go ahead.
Oh no, just bouncing off of that, I was just gonna say I kind of hope he does now so we can clip this and go viral. Cause Leggy, like, I don't know why when you said that, just a wave went through my body. Like, bro, what if that happened?
Ledstradamus.
The fact that he traded Luka, man, anything is on the table. So, but Boston, yeah, man, losing Tatum for a whole year, that is so tough, man. Cause I'm kind of at the point where. I know last time we spoke about it, I kind of was like, maybe they trade Brown, but if you value winning, then you probably shouldn't do that. I'm kind of at the point where now it's like, how can you? We brought up Drew Holiday's contract last time. Who is trading for Drew Holiday to pay him $39 million at the age of 38 or something? Who's trading for that?
Yeah, you have to pay
And
extra to get him off your team, and then it's not worth it.
Yeah.
then Porzingis always injured, and now we don't even know what's going on with him. That's a high contract is going to be hard to sell. So they might be in a position where they kind of have to run it back if they don't want to get a penny on the dollar for those guys and Drew and Porzingis. But again, going back to Jaylen Brown, unless you want to move him, but that's tough, man, because he got you a ship, got a Finals MVP. That's a tough sell to the fans. Not gonna lie.
If you get rid of, sorry, last point I'll make, Sean. Sorry, but if you get rid of Jaylen Brown and Tatum comes back and is not the player you need him to be, and if they traded for Cooper Flagg, and let's just say that didn't work out, because we do see that all the time in every sport. There are players that are touted generational, and it just does not work. What if it doesn't work and Tatum comes back and isn't that dude? Then you're left with nothing. I mean, you're stuck with a Jason Tatum that's the poster boy of the franchise because of what he's done for them, and you're kind of stuck with him at that point. That's just a scary, scary future for them.
Well, and the big thing too is like if you're going to do some form of retooling, I just don't think it makes sense to bring in an 18 or 19-year-old to put alongside like a Jason Tatum who's like going to be 28 or 29 when he comes back from the injury. I think. If you're the Celtics, you're probably gonna have to have some conversations about players that you probably didn't want to have conversations about. Like, not only are you gonna probably have to risk letting Sam Hauser walk for nothing, let Al Horford walk for nothing in free agency, you might have to have conversations of like, do we have to trade Derek White to try and get value back to have like to build something in the future? Because, I mean, like you guys have brought up, the Drew Holiday contract is not a tantalizing contract just based off of his age. Great player, not going to be worth that at the end of his deal. Like, unless you are a truly desperate team, those are going to be the teams that makes those types of moves. But even then, I don't know if I'm Boston, I'm not letting him go to Philly. I'm not letting him go. I'm not letting him go even in conference, right? Like I'm learning from the Bucks on that one. I'm not letting him go to where he could hurt me in the long run. And then Porzingis, this whole like you just brought up, it's like we don't even know what's going on with the health stuff. He's had a viral infection for like months now, and it's literally to the point where like Mazzulla was saying he can't breathe, and he's looking real skinny, and when he's playing, he's not playing well, and you know like you have like what like it's just so fascinating how we talked earlier about the lottery, but in literally in the span of one night, the entire future of the NBA for the next 5 to 10 years completely flipped on its head. Completely flipped. Like we were talking about the Celtics as like a potential dynasty, putting this team together and like potentially being like a great team for years to come. Now, we don't even know what their team's going to look like in opening night.
Yeah, that's a good point about Derek White, because he's a player that is attractive, that can fit on a lot of teams. And, of course, you'd want him to be with Tatum because there's two sides to it. You've seen what he can do when he has to step up. He can be that leading scorer on a team where you have all of those stars that can score the damn basketball. So is that something you get rid of because without Tatum, you don't have a chance? But at the same time, if they start getting rid of those pieces, what does that say to Jaylen Brown? Oh, you're not good enough to help us compete. So they're kind of stuck where if they get rid of some, I feel like they have to get rid of all, because that's just a big FU to the guys who want to compete. And they say, just because Tatum's out doesn't mean we still can't do this. Because if you're looking at what they are now, I still think they are there with New York and Indiana. Obviously, losing Tatum mid-series is tough. I think they're a damn good team.
They're a good team, but everything has to go right, and the star power is just really not there when it's just a Jaylen Brown led team with no Tatum. I really think they, I think you're even seeing, like just this series, just how everything has to go right for that team in order to reach their potential, and I that's one heck of a hand to be had tied behind your back.
No.
Yeah. Eric White, that was a great point to bring up. That's kind of why I didn't mention him last week or this week, because that is not a player I would want to move if I'm Boston. But with his contract not being as much as Brown's and him being a role player that can fit anywhere in the NBA, it actually might be the most valuable. Because it will be some teams that look at Jaylen Brown like, I don't want to pay him $50 million a year. But with Derek White, he's got like 34 and he can do everything right. So he might have the most value. But again, if I'm a Boston fan, supporter, reporter, anything, that is not the guy I would want to lose. But might have to retool, man. And going back to Sean's point about Boston not repeating, this decade has been insane. Like if the Nuggets don't win it this year, we will have six different champions. Haven't had that since like since the 70s. Like the 80s was literally Boston or LA. Pistons and Sixers got in there. The 90s was all Chicago and the Rockets. 2000s was the Lakers and the Spurs and random teams. Pistons, obviously. The 10s had the Heat and the Warriors. So we have not had a decade like this since the 70s. This is crazy, but I'm loving it. I'm loving the parity.
Yeah, this is the most competitive the league's ever been, and in my lifetime, this is the most unpredictable of postseasons we've ever had. Like, it is May 16th, and I couldn't tell you who I think's winning the title. I have no clue. It changes based on the day, on the weather, like on what's going on. Like that is how unpredictable this has been. And you want to talk about like segueing into the next part of this? You talk about the unpredictability. A year ago now, if you would have said the Pistons could be in the conversation for the best teams in the Eastern Conference, you would have laughed us off the internet. This would go viral over the delusion of Detroit fans, right? Well, now Giannis Antetokounmpo is probably not going to be on the Milwaukee Bucks next year. If he is, it's probably his last season. The Boston Celtics for at least the next year, are not going to be the favorite in the Eastern Conference anymore. You have all this power within the Eastern Conference completely shifting. The dynamics of the conference itself is completely on its head. Even teams like the Cleveland Cavaliers, who thought they were going to win a title this year, hang up a banner, they're going to have some real honest conversations about whether or not that group's good enough, right?
Yeah.
I think when you look at the Eastern Conference, there's a very realistic chance, not saying that the Pistons are going to be the top seed in the East, but like, there is no excuse if the East does indeed go in the direction we think it's heading. There's almost no excuse for the Pistons to not be a top 4 or 5 seed in the East next year. I mean, especially when like the only other team that's probably going to be looking to, like make a jump in the standings. Obviously the Sixers are probably going to want to be more competitive next year, but the Magic said they're no longer rebuilding. They're probably going to make some form of aggressive move this year to help and complement that core. But like, other than those teams, guys, like, are the Pistons going to be in the consideration of one of the, are they all of a sudden a power in the East for years to come?
Yeah, they should. I mean, next year, with, I always say it, but next year with a start having a full off season, Cade obviously getting better, getting JI back, Duran growing, they should be in contention for home court next year, man. I like what you said about the Sixers getting better, and that's more so with even a fraction of Joel Embiid. I don't think we'll ever get 33 a game Embiid back, but he should be obviously play more than he played last year. Paul George can't have a stinker of a season like last year, right? Like he can't be that bad. Gotta imagine that. So Philly and Maxey will get better too. So Philly to take a step. The Magic, that was a good shout because them being the 8 seed was kind of surprising this year. Like coming into the year, we thought they would kind of build off that 5 seed season from year before last. So and Paulo is a playoff player. He's getting better. Franz, maybe the jump shot never comes back. At this point, I'm kind of there. Like maybe Franz jumper never comes back, but
Or
he's
maybe
still
it
a
just
great
never
player.
was what people thought it was.
Hey, it might be that. If they get an Anthony Simons or just like a playmaking guard that can make plays for his team and knock down shots, they will be a better team because that defensive infrastructure will always be there with the players they have. But the Pistons, like you said, if Giannis goes to the Spurs or the Rockets or OKC just decides to forget it, let's just do it. Like, let's say Giannis goes to the East, there's no reason why the Pistons shouldn't compete for home court. Out there some teams that can give them a challenge, but it shouldn't be March and they're still on the brink for play-in or playoffs. It should be kind of solidified. Like the Pistons are kind of challenging to host those first 2 games in the playoffs. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. Obviously, I can see Indiana getting better in the regular season again. Cavs, I really would run it back. Not gonna lie to you, I think the
Yeah.
Cavs could look in the mirror and say we were hurt. In some games we blew. Like that was a historic collapsing game too. Um, Mobley might need to be our go-to guy in a sense. Obviously, Mitchell is our go-to scorer, but Mobley should have a bigger role next year. He should for sure be taking the second most shots on the team. Oh, there's some challengers in the Pistons way, but like I said, competing for home court, bare minimum.
Y-
Got to at least be competing for home court.
Yeah, for me, I don't think it will be the Pistons' fault if they're not a home court team. I think they'll do what they can to get there. I think it's just going to be teams under them that do improve. Another team that wasn't mentioned yet is the Raptors, and as much as I like to shit on them and talk about what they haven't been doing well, they have good players. And if they are able to put it together, that is a good group. Sean, you can admit that they're good players, right?
No.
Really? So Scotty.
No,
I think of the 3 players to put that type of money into, I think they chose 3 of the worst. I think Scotty Barnes I think they are all good players in completely completely de-escalated roles from where they are now. I do not want Emmanuel quickly being my second or third best option. I don't want Scotty Barnes being my number 1 facilitator and franchise player that I'm building things around. And I sure as hell don't want to rely on the health of Brandon Ingram when historically speaking, he's a guaranteed 20 games gone a season.
Yeah, for me, it's intriguing.
I could not be more out on a list of moves a franchise has made. I liked how Toronto looked as a defensive unit down the stretch, but like, are we just going to expect them to throw in Brandon Ingram and their defense to stay the same or get better? That's not how that works.
That's a tough point. Like you were saying, I could easily see it burning in flames and then having to completely pivot. But I think when you do have the skill, and if you're able to make the skill work and make the skill gel together, you do have a vision of them being able to put up a really good season. And we've seen teams put up good regular seasons that don't put up good playoffs. So that could be one of those teams, especially with how they're built. And I think that's where the flaws of that squad really could show. So I wouldn't be surprised if they are a number 6 seed, a number 7 seed, maybe even a 5 seed, talking about with who's dropping. But the thing is, I feel like with the Raptors getting above Detroit, it would have to be Detroit's fault at that point. I will say that. But with the teams above Detroit, I mean, the only 3 I can really think of if Giannis leaves, and because of Tatum's injury, is Cleveland, the Knicks, and the Pacers. So if it all goes right for Detroit, they're sitting in that 4 seed, pushing that 3 seed, because that's just how the NBA works. Even if you're the 4th best team, you have a really good shot at getting 3 or 2.
So
what about Philly?
Well,
that's
real
such
quick,
a tough one. Yeah, sorry,
real
Sean.
quick. I just want to highlight something real quick. I think we can both agree that we like the Pistons roster as constructed going into next year more than the Raptors roster, right? Can we all agree on that?
Construction, yes, but I do kind of feel like Toronto might have more high end or upper end talent.
Yes.
Well,
Like overall, as a team fitting together, I think Detroit is
Yes.
more well
I'm with
constructed.
Brennan.
Okay, that higher end, I could not disagree more on that point. But what I'm getting to is
Hold on.
what's that?
Scotty Barnes would be the second best player on the Pistons.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, but Emmanuel
Brandon
Quickly
Ingram would
wouldn't
be the second best player on the Pistons.
Emmanuel Quickly wouldn't start on the Pistons. Brandon Ingram, he would maybe be the 6th man. He would be like a slightly elevated.
I think that's a stretch.
No, Brandon Ingram would not be the 6th man
So
on the
what
Pistons. No way.
Raptors are garbage. But anyway, that's not
Wait,
even my point. My
okay,
point
go.
is no. My point is, well, they are. What do you want from me? They're a lottery team every year.
Well,
but
yes,
even then,
but we're talking. Okay,
even
go.
then, they have a lower ceiling than this Pistons team does, but they have almost $60 million more in payroll. The Pistons currently going into next year have $127 million dedicated to their roster. The Raptors have 181, and one team's way better than the other.
Yeah, Sean, I think we're on the same page on some things, but we're very apart on the Raptors and their players. I don't think
The individual players.
Yes,
yeah.
Brennan and I aren't talking about them being a cohesive unit that fits. If you're just talking about the names, but if to your point, Sean, does that fucking matter if we're just talking about the names? Because that's not the game.
Right, but you guys also did say that their top-end talent is better than the top-end talent on the Pistons.
I would say it is.
Brandon Ingram
is already a better player than all 3 of those guys ever have been.
But that's why I said second best player on the Pistons. Like Brandon Ingram will be by far the second best player on the Pistons.
If you switch,
it's not close.
If you switched Cade,
It's Brandon Ingram, do it like talk about a perception versus reality player. That's like Brandon Ingram's like first team.
He's averaged 20 in the playoffs in a playoff series before.
Hey, let's get civil here. What I'm just gonna say is,
who on the Pistons is as good as him besides Cade?
In a playoff series?
No. In basketball, who on the Pistons is as good as Brandon Ingram besides Cade Cunningham? Sorry, it's not there yet. Ben Ivey is not there. He won't get there probably.
I would rather make the bet that Asar and guys like that will be on that level going into the next season and beyond than giving Brandon Ingram, who has missed 20 games a season on a lock every single year, who's going into his 30s, $40 million a year when he hasn't even played a game, when he hasn't even played a single game in your uniform.
That's contract, and that's like I'm talking about just like player for player right now.
Yeah, I would rather have Asar Thompson than I would rather have Asar Thompson than Brandon Ingram right now.
That's long term, and that's like based off what we're projecting. Asar is not better than Brandon Ingram in basketball right now.
I'm saying today, if we're going out and playing a game of pickup, no, not thinking about salary cap, roster, like any of those things, if I have to pick between Asar Thompson and Brandon Ingram to have on my pickup team, I'm picking Asar Thompson every time.
So
one might give him more buckets than the other, but one has a way more complete game. One is actually additive to his team.
I mean, Brandon Ingram, he definitely had some moments in that playoff series against the Suns where I was like, this is the guy.
He also has a lot of moments in street clothes, though, and that's my problem with Brennan Ingram.
That's kind of, again, though, that for me, that's like, and then even with Scotty, because like I said, higher end talent, the Raptors have, like I said, they have 2 players who on our team will be huge pieces.
Yeah. Like,
I mean,
with how the Pistons are built, I agree with Sean that the fit and wouldn't be the same because of the Cade is the thing that makes this team happen and makes everything fit together. And if you take out some of those pieces and you do put in, let's say a Quickly, you do put in an Ingram, you do put in an RJ Barrett, it gets a little murky. But if you're talking about if you put Scotty on the Pistons instead of Cade, I would rather have those other guys, but that's just a whole other situation. And it's hard to kind of have that make that point because it's just like, that's not real. That's not what's happening. But I do get Brennan's point, player for player.
Who's a better player for player, Jaden Ivey or Emmanuel Quickly?
Quickly is a better ball handler. Shooter. Ivy showed he was a good shooter this year, but we got to see if that's real or not. He didn't do it for the whole season. Defensively, Quickly I don't know. It's about a wash defensively.
I would say with Jaden Ivey's shooting this year, I think I would easily take Ivy just because of the finishing he has and the clutch he's shown.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I don't think it's easy at all. I think the playmaking gap is substantial.
Yeah.
I think Quickly can operate as a secondary ball handler playing off Cade. He is a real threat. Obviously, Ivy is too, like attacking closeouts and stuff, but Quickly can run an offense. I think better than Jaden Ivey could as like the primary decision maker. So like if he's like man in the 6-man, I mean, if he's like man in the backups for some stints, I think Quickly would be better at Ivy than that. You're scoring
here. Missed almost 50 games this last year.
Here, that's again though. I feel what you're saying, like in terms of like the NBA and stuff like that. Like I just mean like player for player and stuff. I mean, Quickly and Ivy is like that's like a good conversation.
Well,
Ivy has, he got.
It might be for like a week, but I think like going into next year and beyond, I think it separates itself. Like I think it's not even gonna be a conversation. Like I think, although like I get like we have to talk about player for player today, but like projection does have to play into it a little bit. And I think if you're talking about
how old is Quickly?
Quickly, he's I believe he's 27, but let me confirm.
Because like
25.
I get the projection part too. That's kind of why I kind of backed off the Asar take, because I do think Asar is going to be better than Brandon Ingram long term. I definitely think that. I agree 100%. But yeah, I just didn't like the tone in your voice saying Brandon Ingram will come off the bench for the Pistons.
That was wild because you put him in that Tobias Harris spot.
Okay,
I do agree that. I do agree. Asar will be better. I agree with that. I do agree with Asar will be better though, for sure.
I was exaggerating a little bit when I was saying that Brandon Ingram
Sean,
would come
stop making good content.
I love it. No, it's what we need. This is what we need. This is great.
I like listen, like don't get me wrong. Like I'm not saying that he's like a bona fide scrub, but like if there's anyone in that Pistons organization who knows about Brandon Ingram, it's Trajan Langdon. I think it speaks volumes. There wasn't even a peep about him wanting to bring him into Detroit.
Also, though, I think that the fit with Cade would be nasty with Brandon Ingram, though, because they kind of operate in the same spaces. I think that was partly the injuries too, obviously, because it's the NBA. You gotta project and you gotta worry about the long-term future of your team. But Brandon Ingram and Cade's fit together is kind of nasty, to be honest.
Well, it's nasty, but when you have two guys doing similar things, I think that opens it up because then the defense has to focus on one, and it's easy to pass and then kind of break the defense down. That does also force you to play a little bit slower, and it kind of gets away from what the Pistons have. But if you can mix that elite fast break option with a really good half court option as well. That's what makes you a top 5, top 3, top number 1 defense or offense. So I get what you're saying about them being similar, but again, it's a lot of ifs.
I kind of dislike my two stars playing the same though. I know D Wade and LeBron made it work, but obviously those are some of the best players ever. I don't like when my best players do the same thing and operate in the same spots personally. But I do get your point about you got a half court scorer and Bi and Cade in transition. I do get that point, but my two players operate in the same spots. I feel kind of just queasy about that personally.
To put a bow on this conversation or on this debate, because we're already almost at 2 hours again, because that's how we do it. That's my bad. But I think my biggest point was with this conversation in particular, like Toronto, like they're gonna have to make they're gonna have to see some like improvements quickly. Otherwise, it's like, well, you're already pretty much at your salary ceiling or salary floor that you can be at. Like money wise, they've already this is your team. And
for sure,
I don't know how movable Brandon Ingram's going to be going forward. I don't know how much people are going to love like a lot of people in the league saw the Quickly contract as an overpay.
Yeah.
And a lot of people were apprehensive of giving Ingram that type of money for those types of years. So I do think I will concede that if they play and if they're healthy and if they achieve what they can, it is an intriguing team. However, to me, it's I think that team screams play-in merchants for the next half decade.
Yeah,
and to me, that's just their ceiling.
And to get back to kind of the whole point, and I think that kind of started from my rant talking about who could be above the pit or who could be near that Pistons spot. The Pistons are in that weird mid area because it feels like the top teams, although Cleveland has had those upsets and they've shit the bed 2 years in a row, 3 years in a row now, they still have the assets and the personnel to put them above Detroit. You're talking about Indiana and New York, who are going to be very similar to what they are now next year, and they're both in the conference they're both going to be in the conference finals. So you're talking about those teams pretty solidified, and you have Detroit, who's kind of that next tier up. But a year ago, Orlando was in that same spot. So it's really hard for me to say Detroit is by far way above where Orlando is. I wouldn't be surprised if Orlando is the 4 and Detroit is that 5-6. And a lot of it depends on what happens this offseason and what Detroit does. Is continuity the best way to go? Or do you get a legit, like a Nas Reed, and you put that with Cade, kind of like what Indiana did with Siakam, and does that propel you to make a surprise conference finals run? Because it's so viable. You saw Cleveland get dismantled in round 2. Why couldn't Detroit do that to a team like that? Why couldn't they do that to a New York? Why couldn't they do that to an Indiana? So Detroit really could be in the Eastern Conference Finals next year. It's a really good possibility.
Yeah, most definitely. I think the big thing is and then this will be the end of my segment here, but I think the big thing is going to be that for this Pistons team to take that next step, if they want to be like a Pacers, they're going to have to, it's all about making the right move at the right time. And the Pacers, they struck gold with the Pascal Siakam trade of when they did it, how they did it, who they got in return. And it's put them in the 2 straight Eastern Conference Finals.
Well, Pistons could have done it too.
On the other hand, if you're the Kings, they went and they got Domantas Sabonis, which cool. Won you 3 playoff games in 3 years. You know.
And now he talking about leaving already. He about to meet with the GMs in the offseason and see what the plans are. So he might be out of there too.
Well, one more point, Sean, with that Siakam trade, it's interesting to think about how he was seen around the league. I think a lot of people thought he would have garnered more of a return than he did. It turned out to be Bruce Brown, Kira Lewis, Jordan Nwora, 2 first-round picks in 24, and a conditional 26 first-round pick. That's not a lot when you're talking about what his impact is. So if you're Detroit, a lot of people have been saying to make that big move, you have to get a Booker. You have to get a Giannis where you're shelling out 4 of your starters, 3 of your young core players, and then 6 picks, 4 picks, plus swaps, plus seconds. We could realistically do a trade for a player who was seen where Siakam was at that point and give up a similar package to what the Raptors ended up receiving for him and have very similar results. Because when you're paying all of that for a Giannis or a Devin Booker, you're bound to not see it fulfill what you want it to. It's bound to be a disappointment when you're giving up that much. So if you can give up a smaller deal for a lesser player, but that fits the system, they could be on that same sort of tier as the top end talent. I digress. Back to you, Sean.
No, that was it. That's it for the segment.
Cool. We're going to be moving on to Brennan's time.
Okay, y'all, man. We just lighten the mood a little bit. The Pistons have one of the best young players in the NBA. We kind of talked about it earlier with the lottery guys kind of blessed the Pistons in that draft. They got Cade Cunningham. And I kind of just want to see where you guys are at. I'm gonna name 7 players. Would you trade Cade straight up for this guy? Just give me a yes or no, and we could just have some conversation about it. Obviously, I'm rolling off Sean's point from the last segment. The outlook of the team definitely matters. So if I ask you Steph Curry, it doesn't matter if you have Steph or Cade, you wouldn't trade Steph for Cade right now because Steph Curry's 100 years old. So obviously, I'm gonna ask you guys about Steph, LeBron, or KD guys like that because they're old. But I will ask you some semi older guys. They're in their prime. So
And
I'll start off with a big.
can I say we're not doing this from the mindset of if we're the Pistons, we're doing this if we started a team and we had Cade and that's it. Are we talking about that?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's start off with some. I got 3 heavy hitters to start off. I have an answer for this, but I want to see where you guys are at with it. Jokic. Would you trade Jokic for Cade straight up right now?
Jokic for Cade or Cade for Jokic?
You're getting Jokic back.
Yeah, I would.
You got Cade.
Jokic.
It's probably one of the players I have a conversation about, but
See, I like it, Sean.
he's approaching 30, and if I think Cade has that MVP upside, I don't know if I'm making that move right away. So I personally, I'm one of the biggest Jokic guys on the planet, but
Yeah.
I think as of right now, how young he is, some of the things he's already done, I'm rolling with Cade if I'm building a team right now. I know it's risky, but
It's
Jokic could go back to his horses tomorrow and decide he's not coming back.
it's tough for me because
That's fact.
this is coming from a house GM where I sit in my chair and watch basketball and act like I know everything. But playing dynasty football, I know a thing about trying to build a team around young talent all the time and saying, oh, but this guy has upside. This guy could be this. At some point, you want to take what you know. And you don't want the mystery box because you could say, well, do you want this boat or this mystery box that could be a boat? Give me the boat. Like you have to. You could end up with nothing. And I'm not trying to say Cade is going to be nothing, but there is a lot of potential for things to go wrong. And I'm not going to say it's going to happen because if being a Pistons fan, being a Cade fan, I do think he can be an MVP. I do think he can be a top 5, top 3 player in the league. But with Jokic, you know what you have this moment, and you can instantly contend next year.
But I think if Cade was coming into the league and hadn't had any run yet, I think that would be a little bit more valid. If this is still the box analogy, this is like one of those wrapped presents where we can tell what it is before we even open it. It's like when you put a baseball bat in wrapping paper. It's like, oh, I don't know. It looks a lot like a boat.
It could be
wrapped up at the moment.
It could be tube socks all lined up to look like a bat. It could be underwear wrapped to look like a bat. No, I get what you're saying, Sean. That's just such a tough thing, and maybe I was super quick to pick, and then not, and now I'm like stuck with that. I'm just kind of devil's advocating on it, but yeah, that's a good one, Brennan.
That is a good one.
Yeah, and Sean, I like the energy. I like where you are at. So I feel like I know some of your answers for the rest of them. Because if you want to trade it for Jokic, I don't think you would do it for Giannis now, would you?
No.
Yeah. I feel like
if I'm thinking about team builder, I do have to think about the age quite a bit. Like that's the part that makes these so hard. Is like once you have the 3 instead of the 2 at the beginning of their age, it gets a lot harder for me as someone who's building a team, thinking about primes, doing projections, all those types of things. That's where it gets tricky for me.
Well, for me, it's an easy Cade. And I know you might say, well, you said Jokic. But the thing for me is yeah, they're both getting older, but one of them has a game that can really easily translate to his older
Love it.
age, and that's Jokic. So Giannis,
Love it.
what is he going to be in a few years?
One guy already moves like he's 40. The other guy is very much predicated on athleticism.
Well, and with Giannis, like you're already seeing the decline, especially laterally on defense. You saw what Halliburton did to him to end that game, end their series, end their season, maybe end his career in Milwaukee. I mean, when it mattered most, Giannis wasn't able to defend. And
Offensively, though, Giannis might be at his offensive apex like these last 2 years, but the lateral quickness part, but the dominance in the paint is just becoming more and more dominant.
Yeah.
Back to the Jokic things, real quick. Jokic could either play for 8 more years or like 3 more years. Like Sean said, he could easily just say, I finished basketball. I'm done, and go back to the horses. So
I feel like one more title and he's done.
Let's see it. Okay, now I'm gonna hit you guys with some rapid fire. These guys have tools in their age to start it off. So SGA, 26 years old. How we feeling?
I think I take SGA.
I would have to mull that one over very seriously. As big of a Cade fan as I am, that's where you can have the boat analogy a little bit of like, all right, well, this guy's like reared up, ready to go. He's only a couple years older. He's looking pretty special, man. Like he is. There are probably like only 4 or 5 guys I would consider trading Cade Cunningham for in the league. SGA is one of them, without a doubt.
Well, I don't know if it's much of a thought. And as much as I love Cade, is his ceiling higher than what SGA is?
I mean, for like only other guy other than Luka and Oscar Robertson to average 25, 8, and 8 in his first 5 playoff games.
Yeah.
Like at what point are we just massively underappreciating the ceiling of what Cade is?
That's also fair. That's a good point, Sean.
Yeah. I would do it. Obviously I think K does have MVP potential. I think he actually will get an MVP. But with the way the people vote versus Detroit, he'll have to just be a runaway to win it.
Yeah.
But Shea is just like we said, man. He only 26. It's not like he's Jokic and Giannis's age, and he doesn't have a ring, so he already still has a lot to play for. So I think I would take Shea. I got 4 more names. You mentioned Luka. How we feeling with the Luka stuff?
Sorry, Luka. Cade. One guy's in shape. One guy plays defense.
Yeah, one guy cares about the other side of the floor.
Yeah, and I think another thing that is really clouding my judgment, and I thought it was thinking at first was like, we've seen Luka on these dominant teams since he was in his second year. So Cade, we're just seeing it, and it took me until game 3 or 4 of this playoff series to be like, okay, the Pistons are legit, because part of me was like, this can't be real. It's a sham because of how much I've witnessed in my time as a Pistons fan. Let's just say Cade went to the situation Luka was in. Would he do as good? Probably not, but like looking at the trajectory Luka is on now. But that's tough because Cade, if he's there, we might be seeing what we saw this year earlier. So that's a tough one, but I think Cade is my choice.
Yeah, Luka, the fact that he is still battling weight issues and how much he plays basketball is just outrageous to me.
Yeah.
Like the amount of energy you spend running on the basketball court every single day and to still be out of shape is just insane to be a star athlete. It's crazy.
I mean, again, man, availability cannot be over. That's one of the reasons why Jason Tatum was as awesome as he was, is because he always played every single night and gave you the same thing every single night. Whereas, like, Luka, the highs are about as high as you can get in the game of basketball. The lows, I mean, guys like penciled in missing at least 15 to 16 games a season. That's like a 6th or 5th of your season. That's a massive portion of your games.
Agreed. And Tatum would have been on this list, but I excluded him because, like Led you said earlier, hopefully, man, like all jokes aside, I really do hope Tatum can come back and be that success story with the ACL, like a Kevin Durant story since he's younger. But like Led you said, we don't know what he'll be, so I kind of excluded him. But three more names, like I said, we can go rapid fire. Talk to me about Ant, Paolo,
Mm.
and Wembanyama. All three of those guys.
I
All
would
younger than Cade or close to, or like same age as Cade.
I would say Wemby. That's the first one on this list where I'm like, yeah, you go with Wemby. I think the other two, I would take Cade because I think, well, and I would take Cade over Paolo. I think Paolo's outside shooting is going to always be rough, and I feel like that kind of limits what he can do. Um, Ant is the one that's a little bit tougher for me to kind of think about because as a person, as a human being, I think that matters a lot when you're talking about a franchise player, face of the league. I think Cade takes that. In terms of just pure scoring, I would take Ant. But when you're talking about the facilitating, playing team basketball, being able to lead a team, I would take Cade. But at the same time, you're seeing Ant in these playoffs right now, maybe winning a final. So does that all go out the window? Like, Sean, I'm actually really curious what you think.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, if there's if it would go, I think I would probably do it with two of the three guys here. Where like with Wemby, it's he's the biggest trade asset in the league. That goes without saying. Um, Ant, are there questions about his immaturity? Absolutely, but what we are seeing from his game is that he has been so good that those questions have been laid to rest almost. Like he just got to the conference finals for the second year in a row. And this year he did it with a significantly different roster. And I just, when you look at like the way that, and just like the overall trajectory of like moving forward, like Ant and Cade are the same age. They're probably like similar level of basketball player as far as their talent and production and what they bring. But then you're getting to the nitty gritty of like, oh, well, who's the better athlete? Who's the,
Yeah.
who's the better jump shooter? Who, like all those things. And it's like, as of today, like Anthony Edwards is getting compared to Michael Jordan for a reason.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think, although like I would rather have Cade be the face of my franchise, I think you have to take Anthony Edwards, the basketball player today.
Yeah.
However, again, we're seeing Cade's improvements at a very rapid pace. And so
So was Paulo a no-brainer, just easy money pick? Go Cade over Paulo?
I wouldn't say it was like easy. It's like I would still probably have to talk about it a little bit, but like to me, like I think they're so similar level. I think Cade's a little bit better, more complete an offensive player and scorer today than Paulo is. I did not love what we saw for offensively from Paulo to end the season. Especially like a lot of his like long mid-range game was just kind of disgusting, to be honest with you. So I think there's still some growth and some getting into the gym that Paulo needs to do. But I think I just think with Cade's maturity, his production, being like the lead guard who can facilitate and run your offense and kind of be the focal point, I would pick Cade today personally.
Yeah, for me with Paulo, it's an interesting thing because if you talk about how Paulo and Cade really depend on team construction in a way. And I think that's a very important point for both of them. They really need spacing to really maximize how they play. And if Paulo had that this year, I think we're talking about the Magic as a top 5 seed. They would probably be right where the Pistons are. And I think that would be really more of an interesting conversation because we saw Paulo do it last year, and if we saw him do it again this year with an improved roster, I think that it makes it a little bit more interesting because then he wouldn't have to do the things that he really isn't great at. And I think that's what really makes a star of stars when you can really focus on what makes you you. And I feel like he's kind of getting away from that. And that's just a tough conversation. But like at this point, it's Cade because what we saw from Paulo this year.
Yeah, I agree with Cade being the more complete offensive player. Maybe not scoring wise, 'cause I do like what Paulo does a lot. The decision making on Paulo is kind of questionable with all the middies he takes. So once he establishes and just understands, if I go to the rack, nobody in the NBA can stop me every single time. Develops that mindset. I like Paulo a lot more as a scorer, but yeah, KD is more complete. So and defensively, KD competes more. Paolo potentially could give you more because of the size, but Cade already fights and gives more effort on that end of the ball. So yeah, I agree. I think I would take Ant and Wemby too. And is a little bit closer than Wemby, obviously. But yeah, Cade out of the young guys in the league, man, it's only so many players we would take over him, man. He is
Yeah.
clearly on his way to being one of the best players in the NBA as a whole. Already making All NBA this year. And to kind of tie this back into the lottery talk from earlier, the Pistons are blessed that they got the first pick overall that year because if you would have got Jalen Suggs this year, you back at the 13th or 14th seed in the East again. So
Well, and even
just got blessed.
no disrespect to Evan Mobley, but like, I don't think the Pistons are in the same spot if they have Evan Mobley even over Cade
No way.
Cunningham, because they needed the guy who could be the cultivator, the guy who could be the straw that stirs the drink, the engine that makes the train go choo choo. You know what I mean? Like they needed
Yeah.
that guy to be the center point.
I'll just say,
During
imagine.
the,
Sorry, I was just gonna say, imagine a team where you
yeah,
have Asar Thompson and Mobley on the same roster on
exactly.
defense. It's like you could definitely see where it'd make for an interesting team, but then you're talking about you're good enough to make the play-in, but you're not good enough to actually do anything beyond, and you're not bad enough to get other players.
You're probably scoring like 95 points a game with Mobley in place of K. So that's kind of why I left off Mobley. Obviously a great player. He'll be all NBA this year too, but I just value creating so much. Like if you put two players in a vacuum and one can create and one isn't that level of a creator, it's just hard for me to take the non-creator over the creator most times. Obviously we have exceptions and stuff, but it's just hard for me to kind of value what Mobley does over what K does because K can be the guy on the team.
Yeah,
Mobley,
seeing
maybe Mobley can, but he's not that right now.
seeing Mobley's 3-point progression throughout his career has been really interesting to see kind of go down more, because if he adds that to a more of a consistent level, I mean that's an elite player you're talking about. That's like almost prime-ish Anthony Davis you're talking about.
He'll definitely be elite for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's always going to be like that Chris Bosh player where it's like he's going to be one of those stars. It's like the icing on the cake or the cherry on top that takes you over, kind of over the hump. There's a lot of the dirty things, but he's never going to be like, oh man, the guy that got them over the hump was Evan Mobley.
Exactly.
That's not him. You're not that guy, pal. You're not that guy.
Exactly. That's all we had, man. I love it. Love the young players talk. We had some good ball talk right there about a lot of the great players around the league. Great ball talk.
Well, let's keep stalling. I'm scared, boys.
Here we go. Hot wings at 11:22 at night.
I have a
no
a milk hat that I brought out for this occasion. If I can find
Oh, boy.
it's dripping all over. Which is the straw from the milk? I think it's this one. We are going to be talking, and there's going to be milk dripping. Oh man, I didn't think this part through. Now my keyboard's all milky.
Is this a surprise that you you promised us?
Yep, we're going to be talking today about all looks like a dad at a barbecue Piston squad, and I have blazing wings. So for the probably two people that are in here, one of them probably being myself. Hope you enjoy this. I have to eat 6 blazing wings from B-Dubs. Who do you guys say is number? Oh my God, it's already hurting.
Awesome start. Awesome start.
Okay, number 1.
Are we talking all time?
Yeah.
Bill Lambier seems like a guy who would be just man in the grill all the time.
I mean, Bill Ambier's 100% the dad who had to run to the corner store to get charcoal and ice.
Yeah.
Probably got some beers too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He has never had a beer without it being in a koozie. I feel comfortable saying that.
That's a good one. That's a good pull. Clear as day.
I feel like I mean you got to throw in Tobias Harris. He's unk. You know what I mean? Like to me, it's like I view him just as like the team dad, kind of like the one that everyone kind of looks at as like their, like when you're at UG status, that's like the closest thing you could be to like Papa. You know what I mean? So like he is absolutely the dad bod hoop god.
Yeah,
Man.
you guys are making some great.
What do you think, Leggy? What are your
what you think,
thoughts
Leggy?
here?
Yeah, give me a dad, Leggy.
Rick Mahorn. He'd keep everybody safe the whole time. Oh my God.
You want to expand on that more? Like, what do you think about like Rick Mahorn? Like, makes him such like a fatherly figure.
He would always step up and stand up for what's right. And he's a guy, holy and he's always gonna make sure that the people are safe.
Oh, Leggy. Oh no. Oh, you are sipping that milk.
Bruh.
It's incredible. Oh, that's so good. I think Richard Hamilton gives off dad vibes as well, especially when you have to hoop in a mask. That's dad energy. I'm sorry. It just is.
Mm-hmm.
But is he masking or no masking at the barbecue though?
Oh, he breaks out the mask at every occasion. Like that is like whenever he's hooping, it's like, oh, when the mask is on, the bets are off.
Yeah.
You got left, Leggy.
2.
Going through them though.
Yeah, I think
What's another player, Leggy?
Isaiah Stewart. He can play
As a
volleyball.
dad.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess he's like I guess he's the Papa Bear who's gonna kill someone if they go after their kids.
Guys, I've had blazing wings once before, and I don't remember it being this bad.
Yeah, it's bad. Isaiah Thomas, I will say, like he was kind of like the clean cut, like kind of like the sweet boy of the NBA before he became the villain.
Oh no, it's on.
He's very proper. He's very, like well put together. I would say he absolutely, and especially kind of being a little smaller guy as well. Like, he's got that dad look to him.
Since he's left the NBA, he definitely has like the old man yelling at the clouds mentality with a lot of lot of situations. So yeah, IT does fit that. I was thinking Kyle Singer as just like a young guy,
Mo Cheeks,
a young dad.
Mo Cheeks.
Guys,
I don't know, man. I feel like Flip Saunders looks like the dad that's gonna take you to the beach.
Bruh. RIP Flip, man. That's a great time. Great time with him as the coach.
Monty,
my boy over there dying, man.
Monty's the dad that like you like shut your door and are like, I'm staying in my room. Like, I don't even want to hear from you. Like, he would just say his corny platitudes that don't apply. Oh,
barricade yourself in the room. He tried to come in. You got yourself barricaded.
Uh-huh.
So you're gonna have to sign us off tonight. Tell my wife and kids I love them.
Yep.
I need to go get more milk, boys.
Oh, Leggy, you think this is bad? Your bathroom's about to be done for tonight.
I need more milk.
Oh my gosh, this is incredible. Oh man, I knew the wings were gonna be cruel and unusual punishment.
Yeah,
but yeah,
that was the one.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say, Brennan, I think you kind of got off easy in comparison with the Warheads.
I think so too.
Yeah, I mean, like, don't get me wrong. You still had to pay your price. You still had you still had to go to war, but there's different degrees of war. And
yeah,
what we just saw Leggy endure, gotta give him props.
I was I didn't have to leave in the middle of the podcast. So
no,
I realize you guys can't stop the stream.
We were just talking about how brave you were for enduring that, and it also.
Carton.
Oh yeah.
I'm doing the 2-gallon milk challenge too, boys.
Oh man, your toilet is about to be praying to a higher power, man. Oh my gosh.
Well, let's see. We probably have millions of people, 4 people witnessing this. Oh God.
Hey, this is worth it. This is worth it for the clips, and this is worth it. This is worth it for the VOD, man.
You guys are gonna have to clip this because if I watch, I'm gonna get sick just looking at myself chugging.
There's gonna be a moment where people are like, "I was there, man."
Yes, I was gonna say there's gonna be 313 Connect lore for sure. Like
exactly
on the Reddit someday.
100%.
You guys remember that?
Yep, exactly. And now
the Brandon Ingram versus Basari Thompson plus the Milk and Hot Wings episode.
Man, I feel bad for because you guys are on Discord. Holy crap!
I
can't hear all the sounds.
I just want to point out that I did not. I am the person on the pod who has not yet had to do a punishment yet, and so
we'll make you do the punishment.
Yeah, I think we all might pick the same teams next round, maybe. So we got to figure something out.
Well, to the people that somebody joined and instantly left, they probably were like, "Why is that guy drinking milk?"
Probably like, them boys weird. What they doing?
Hey guys,
they're just talking about basketball while one of the guys is just swigging on milk,
dripping from his beard and all over his shirt.
Oh, yeah, he do got stains all over his shirt.
You should see my
pants. Oh my gosh. Oh wow, my screen didn't even do it justice. You are soaked. Holy crap.
That
on that note, boys,
I didn't see the bottom.
Been another episode of 313 Connect. Leggy is still gathering his mental capacity and his overall well-being from those wigs. So thank you to him for putting that in. Thank you to those who tuned in as well. Be sure you follow us on social media so you don't miss any of the work that these guys have going on. Brennan, what's your social handle again?
Smoke Souls NBA.
Leggy at Leggy Sports on TikTok, on YouTube, on Twitter, on all the things.
Mm-hmm.
You can also find myself at Sean Halfcourt and on YouTube at From Halfcourt. I will also be on a podcast soon. That's going to be a special about Javante Porter. So I will be interviewed for that on Monday. So be on the lookout for when that comes as well.
Oh, and Sean and I will be on Pistons Talk podcast tomorrow night. Brennan has some life events. Not bad. It makes it sound like something bad happened, but great stuff going on for Brennan.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. You guys kill it tomorrow, man. Kill it tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll let him know that we need to get all of us on soon as well. My tongue is done.
We will catch you guys next time from 313 Connect. Be sure you're subscribed.